All right, those connected to the live chat, go to week 4, click on the check-in module and submit your name. And then number 3 here, you'll need to go at the very top of the course web page in Eagle and there should be a join live chat at, and you can click on that link from your computer. You're viewing the live screencast, or you can view that chat from your phone to have a separate screen. Either one, or you can set up your computer to where the live chat's in one part of your screen and the chat's on the other part. Chat module doesn't take up a lot of room. However you want to do it. As soon as you get into the chat module, put in your full name and say hello, and I'll know you're in. We'll get started here in about 5 minutes. Those just joining the live chat or the live video feed of my desktop, go to week 4, click on the check-in module, post your name, and then you'll go join the live chat at tik or tlk.io Professor Geek / Professor Geek, or you just click on the link at the top of our RVC Eagle page where it has online class procedure 1, 2, 3, and follow the steps there. When you get into the chat module, go ahead and post your name, full name, what it asks you, and post hello when you're in. All right, those just coming in to the live podcast, go ahead and go to week 4 module, post your name in the check-in. And then at the top of our RVC Eagle homepage is a link to the live chat where it says join live chat at. Click on that link to bring up the chat module. And you can position your screens to where you have the live podcast on one part of your screen and the chat on the other part. Or some students have been launching the live chat on their mobile device, like your phone. That way you can use the podcast to take up your full screen. However you want to do it. As soon as you get into the live chat module and put your full name in there, go ahead and post in there hello, so I'll know you're in. All right, those just coming online in the live podcast. Go ahead and go to week 4. Go to the check-in module, post your name. Then you will come back to the top of the homepage on our Eagle course where it says online class procedure. Number 1, 7:30, submit your name. Number 2, watch podcast, which you're already doing. Number 3, join the live chat. And you can join the live chat from your desktop, laptop, or some students are joining the live chat from their phones. And that way you have 2 separate screens, one on maybe on your desktop or laptop or tablet for the live podcast and the chat on your phone. Or you can put them both on the same device as well. Just reposition your screen. As soon as you post your name and join the live chat with your full name, go ahead and post as Sean and Jason have, and Sebastian with the hello that you're in. Great. And we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. All right, those just coming online with the podcast. At the top of our homepage is the steps of how to do the online class procedure. You'll submit your name in week 4 module, the check-in module. And number 3 here where it says join live chat at, you'll go to that chat module and put in your full name and then type the word hello, post hello or hi or something like that when you get in. All right, those just coming in to the online class tonight. Number 1, go to week 4 module, submit your name in the check-in. And then number 2, make sure and join the live chat at the link at the top of our homepage. You can join the live chat within your computer along with the podcast. Just move your screens around where you see both, or you can have the students tell me they like to launch the chat on their mobile device. You can do that as well, however you want to do it. It will fit on one screen. Just reposition your screens. That's fine. As soon as you get into the chat module, put your full name and then post hello, and we'll get started here in a moment. All right, those just joining, this is week 4, and we're going to go over week 4's content in a second. Just make sure those are just coming in to the online podcast. Make sure to go to week 4 module, check in, click on the live chat link at the top of the page of our homepage and on Eagle, and make sure and put in your full name when you get to the chat and post hello when you get in. Those of you that have already done that, go ahead and go to week 4 lab and post your name in week 4 lab. All right, those just joining, make sure and go ahead and submit your name in the check-in module in week 4. Come back to the homepage here and click on the live chat. Post your full name in the live chat to join, and then post hello, as Ethan just did. After you've done that, go to week 4 lab module and post your name to get 50 points for the lab that we're going to be doing tonight online. Yeah, Jason, just post your name in the lab module. Even I know it asks for a file. Your name should be fine. It should let you post your name, I believe. Let me see if I can change that for you guys, because I'm not going to have you submit that file tonight. So give me a second on a week 4 lab, and I will change that from file upload to text. I'll just check box text option. Okay, so if you will refresh week 4 lab, you should be able now to submit your name. Disregard on number 3 where it says attach a file. You should be able to do a text entry now of your name. If you've already tried to upload a file or whatever, that's fine. If you've done that already, that's fine. So in week 4 lab, just submit your name for now. That will be great. I'm not going to have you upload the document when we're finished here. Yep, that'll work. That'll work, Jason. Okay, Ethan, your Wi-Fi is slow. That's fine. Well, I believe everybody is in, or we're missing one person, but we're going to get started. So thanks for joining the online for week 5 or week 4. We're going to be doing the discussion as always. We're going to over this week's content, which is chapter 3. Homework for this week is quiz and review questions as always. And so let me go ahead and launch chapter 3, and we will be doing the lab together. I'll get you started on it, and a lot of the stuff that we'll do together. During the lab time, I will more than likely, because it's going to be hard for you to go back and forth between the podcast and the lab. So what I'll probably have you do during the lab time is minimize the podcast screen to where you can still hear me, and we'll just follow the directions in lab 4 is part of what we'll end up doing. Yeah, Ethan, that's fine. This is uh, this is being recorded, so if you get choppy and you can't finish it all, you can finish it when you get home. That's fine. Hopefully, you're not driving. All right. Go ahead and download chapter 3. All right. So we're going to go over transmission basics tonight and talk about that and what it's all about, different media that falls upon a network and how that works. So transmission basics, some definitions here on the offset of it is the word transmit. Basically, it's issuing signals along a network medium. That network medium can be wired or wireless. The transmission itself is a process of transmitting that signal across that medium, whether it be wired or wireless. And then transceiver is the transmit and receive signals. Analog and digital signaling, a couple differences here. Important characteristic, though, of all data transfer or data transmission is a signaling type. You either have analog or you have digital. In the analog and digital both, there's a terminology we need to go over. One is voltage, or volt is the electrical current. Electrical signal strength, which is directly proportional to the voltage. And signal, which is the current, the light pulses, or electromagnetic waves. And so that's referring to light pulses would be your fiber, current would be the wired, like in Cat5 cable, and electromagnetic waves would be Wi-Fi. So here's a diagram of a analog signal. You'll notice in an analog signal, and I'll use my mouse here to show you that there's peaks and valleys in an analog, but it's fairly continuous. Fairly continuous. And in the properties of an analog, you've got amplitude, frequency, wavelength, and phase. So on the amplitude, it's the height of the wave. Frequency is going to be the how often that wave occurs. Wavelength is the actual length of the wave, however long it might be. And then phase is the time of the length. So amplitude is the wave strength, frequency times it over fixed time, measured in hertz, and wavelength is a distance between 2 points, measured in meters or feet. Here's a wave's progress over time in relation to fixed point. And again, one of the things we're looking at here is on the analog, you're going to see fluctuation of peaks and valleys in that wave strength. There is benefits of analog over digital, one of them being it's more variable, it uses less energy. Drawback of analog, though, it's imprecise and transmission flaws. So you can have a lot of feedback, a lot of garbled communication. And back in the analog days of cell phones, when your signal was really weak on the lower end of the valleys, it was like you were in a tunnel. You could barely hear a person, or it would break up while they were talking. Digital signals, on the other hand, is pretty simple. It's either on or off. It's positive 1 or 0 off. Positive 1 on, 0 off is all it represents. So zeros and ones, so like a light switch on the wall in your home is digital signals. Your cell phones that work on digital today are either on. It's either on or off as far as your signals go. Now you can have. I'm not talking about like strength of signal to the tower. I'm talking about just the signal itself, either on or off. So here's an example of a digital. You'll notice it's much different than an analog, and the fact that, like I said, it's either on or off, positive or negative. And when it comes to digital, you're going to have binary equivalent of ones and zeros. And in that, you've got some terminologies, one being the word byte, which is basically the position of a binary number in a byte. There's 8 bytes or 8 bits for 1 byte. Computers read and write in this information, and it relates and converts easily to decimal. Decimal converting to bit, bit converting back to decimal. So when it comes to analog and digital signaling, you can convert byte to decimal, determine the value of each one of the octets. An octet would be in an IP address. You have 4 octets. An example of an IP address might be like a 192.168.1.1. The 192 is the first octet, 168 is the second octet, and third octet will say 0, fourth octet's 1. Each one of those binary or decimals I just mentioned can be converted into, each one of those binary octets can be converted into a bit, each one of those columns. So you can also convert a decimal back to a byte by reversing the process. You can use a scientific calculator as well to do it as well on your computers or phones. And you can also do it by hand. So the benefit of digital over analog is it's more reliable, less noise susceptible. Drawbacks is many pulses require to transmit redundant information on purpose. A lot of overhead, a lot more equipment needed to push digital than analog. Data modularization. This is where data since it relies heavily on digital transmission today, needs data modularization, where network connections may handle only analog. Bring it into the house, it needs to be converted to digital, or into the businesses, converted to digital. And this is accomplished by a modem. So an example for you might be Xfinity. Coming into your home, you have a modem, which also probably serves as a Wi-Fi access point. It brings in that transmission, converts it to digital in a demodulator-modulator scenario. So what it does basically is it modifies analog signals and makes it suitable for that communication, whether it be data for your computer, or if it's cable TV, it's going to be video and voice. In data modularization, you got carrier waves that combined with analog make it a unique symbol or a unique signal that transmits it from one node to the other. The information wave, which is a data wave, is added to the carrier wave and is modified within that wave itself. Frequency carries it along the analog frequency path, and then amplitude carries that signal to the destination. All this, though, you'll notice, is modified depending on the wave it might be. Bottom example here is an FM wave for FM stations that you listen to maybe. Information wave, notice it's much more fluid and smooth. And a carrier wave, which would be like the cell phone days, is much more closer in proximity, and generally it's going to be lower peaks and valleys. When it comes to transmission, you've got a couple terminologies here. Simplex, duplex, and half duplex. Simplex is where basically the transmission is one direction. Half duplex is where it's both directions, but only one at a time. So kind of like a walkie-talkie on a half duplex. Full duplex is where you've got both directions simultaneously on a network, which is what we mainly use today on all of our networks. So simplex, half duplex, full duplex. The only thing you need to really understand about this is over time and iteration over time, things have definitely changed when it comes to communication with transmission. But still, there are uses for, like, say, simplex, where you have a transmitter and a receiver, and that's it. Meaning the receiver does not kick back any information back to the transmitter. An example might be talking to or listening to your FM radio. You could say it's more of a simplex transmission because the radio station is broadcasting to the cars and to the homes data, but nothing's brought back to that tower. When it comes to other uses, we could say satellite. It also could be a simplex as well, where your satellite receiver at home for, say, DirecTV or something is receiving data from the satellite in a simplex mode. And we move over into the full duplex, you're talking about modern day broadband connection, DSL connection, and networking within a normal home or business network. So that's all you need to know about multiplexing and duplexing and single duplexing. Now, there are nodes when it comes to transmission media that's important to note. One is point-to-point transmission, point-to-multipoint transmission, broadcast transmission, and non-broadcast. So point-to-point is where you have one transmitter and one receiver. Point-to-multipoint, one transmitter, multi-receivers. Broadcast, one transmitter and multiple undefined receivers. used on wired and wireless networks both, like from your home and business. It's very simple and quick to set up. Many users can join, drop, be added, leave the network at any time. Non-broadcast is one transmitter, multiple defined receiver. So here's an example of a point-to-point. You've got a point-to-point satellite, or not satellite, dish to uh, homes. And we could say the left example, the point-to-point transmission, could be sharing internet or sharing data one to the other. Pushing data really is a better example, where you're pushing nodes one to the other. And so like you're broadcasting from one node to the other some information in a point-to-point transmission. And so, the antennas on top of your house is receiving digital TV today. It used to be UHF, VHF. Then you got some terminologies when it comes to modern day networks that you'll hear a lot, which is throughput and bandwidth, which you've probably heard of bandwidth before. But throughput basically is amounts of data that's transmitted over a period of time. Also refers to the capacity or bandwidth and how many bits are transmitted per second. Bandwidth, a strict definition, is the difference between the highest and lowest frequency a medium can transmit. Range of frequencies and hertz is measured in this. So an example of throughput, 1 bit per second is abbreviated as BPS, to kbps, which is 1,000 bits per second. 1 megabit per second, 1 million bits per second. Mbps, gigabit per second, 1 billion. And then 1 trillion, you've got your terabytes of data, TBPS. When you come to transmission and baseband and broadband, the differences is on baseband, you've got digital signals sent through a DC pulse over wire, requires exclusive use of the wire's capacity, and 1 signal at a time is transmitted. Example would be Ethernet, like we use at work, at school, and those of you that have Ethernet at home for, say, from your Xfinity modem to your TV or to your game box, possibly. Broadband is where you have signals modulated through like radio frequency. Uses on this, different modularizations, does not encode information on this like digital does. Then transmission flaws. You got transmission flaws when it comes to networking and media. Noise would be one, and that could be coming from degrading or distorting signal. Types of noise can occur through electromagnetic energy, through a number of things like your microwave starting, your garage door opening. Crosstalk is where your wires in your house or business are close to electrical wires, can cause crosstalk. Environmental influences like heat, or you're in a factory and it's noisy and susceptible to heat and cold. So crosstalk in a good way, when it comes to networking, is an example of Cat5, where you want certain crosstalk to occur for data attenuation. So attenuation refers to the loss of signal as it travels away from the source. So the higher attenuation, higher data loss. Lower attenuation, lower data loss. So because of that, you have what's called signal boosting technology. So there's only so long you should run a wire, like a Cat5 wire. 100 meters, 120 meters are roughly the longest you want to run it. Then you have to have a switch or a hub or something to repeat it. In analog world, for boosting, you have an amplifier, a regenerator that generates in the digital world, or a repeater, and then amplifiers and repeaters all are on the OSI model in the physical layer. So here we have at the top an analog digital signal distorted by some noise on a tower. And you'll notice when it hits the amplifier, that noise is amplified as well. Digital, the noise might be caused by a magnet, and it's from a car or a fan on an engine or something, or uh, that has battery, generates a generator of some type and has a battery built into it, magnetic energy, could cause distortion, and then repeated by the distorter or by the repeater. Then you've heard of these, if you're a gamer, the word latency when it comes to networking, a delay between the signal transmission and receipt of the transmission. Causes of latency could be cable length, connectivity devices could be going bad. Round trip time. This is basically where you have the time for the packet to go to and from a sender, measured in milliseconds, and may cause network transmission errors. There's common media transmission characteristics, like, for instance, matching networking needs with media. An example would be throughput, cost, size and scalability, connectors, and noise immunity. Might be some characteristics you're looking at to consider what media to use. Throughput could also be another significant media factor. Cause of limitation, law of physics, signaling and multiplexing techniques, noise around the area, devices connected to transmission media. Fiber optic cables allow the fastest throughput. So a lot of times, and it's also the highly noise immune. So it's used a lot of times in factories and noisy areas. And compared to copper or wireless, it's the fastest throughput. More expensive though. Cost is also a factor. So precise cost is difficult to pinpoint depending upon if you're going to make your own wires or you're going to buy them pre-cut. And so also labor cost, networking size, what hardware you have. Variables in costing could be installation, to new infrastructure, to maintenance, cost of lower transmission rate affecting productivity in the business, cost of obsolescence, meaning things don't work with your newfangled connections. Noise immunity is basically where the noise is distorted by the data signals, and distortion rate is dependent upon transmission medium. And fiber, again, being the most expensive to run, though, is the least susceptible to noise. Limited impact on a network would be like cable installation far away from powerful electromagnetic forces, selecting media protecting signals from noise, and anti-noise algorithms. And so if you're going to run Cat5 in a shop area that's noisy, make sure it's running away from the machinery and away from things that's going to be electromagnetic in nature. Also, size and scalability. How long do you have to run between each one of your switches in your business? What's the segment length? What's the network length? That's going to determine a lot of times what medium that you want to use. Segment types generally have to do with your switches that are connected to those mediums and where they're at in your business. And because after a certain distance, running a cable, whether it be Cat5 or even fiber and even wireless, you're going to lose signal strength. Connectors, depending upon the medium that you use, Cat5 fiber is going to depend upon the connectors used for that wiring. Costing also is going to be affected because different connectors cost different pricing. Your connectors for Cat5 is cheaper than connectors for fiber. Then you've got what's called a media converter, where it enables a network of segments running on different media to interconnect and exchange signals. An example, you have a switch that has on the front Cat5 connectors, and on the back, maybe a fiber connector to connect to other switches in your business. And it converts that signal coming from Ethernet into fiber. Here's an example of a copper wire to fiber media. On the right is a Cat5 plug-in. On the left is fiber. And this is used a lot in businesses, again, to transverse between building to building. This box might be in the last switch on the wall in the building on the bottom floor, and it goes into the last switch on the Cat5 port there on the right. And then on the left, fibers ran underground to the next building, to the next box that looks like this, that connects to the switch in that building to connect the networks. Coaxial cable. This is just exactly like the coaxial cable you have at home for your through Xfinity or whatever. Excuse me. Or whatever cable provider you have. You'll notice that the center of it is a often copper core. It's a conducting core surrounded by an insulator, PVC, Teflon. Then it's an insulation branded shielding of some type, and then the outer sheath, hard plastic on the jacket, and even hard rubber at times. Coaxial is very high resistance to noise because of the makeup of the cable. It can also carry signals further without being amplified, unlike twisted pair. Disadvantage over twisted pair is it's more expensive. Hundreds of specifications for coaxial, and the many differences in the shielding, in the cores of those cables. Coaxial cable core is defined by the American wire gauge size. And here are the data networks usage for coaxial, RG6 through RG59. On the left is something you've seen before that connects to your cable modem, to your TV. On the right is what I used to use when networking first started, when I first started networking, where's a BNC connector. These would connect to your NIC card, and then those will connect to a coaxial cable. Twisted pair, the most popular today, and the lab will be doing here in a bit on cabling. You'll notice inside the twisted pair cables, there's 4 pairs, a solid and a stripe of each color. So you got orange, white, orange, blue, white, blue, green, white, green, and brown, white, brown. And you'll see this when we do the lab. The striped ones are hard to see the stripes sometimes, and so you'll see that. But you'll notice how there's twisted. There's twisted here. Okay, Sean, if your Wi-Fi is cutting out, that's okay. It's being recorded so you can watch it later. That's fine. Thanks for joining, by the way. I know Wi-Fi does that sometime. So you'll notice how it's encapsulated in a plastic sheath, and 0.4 to 0.8 millimeters in diameter. And the most important part about twisted pair is that the more resistant to crosstalk by having more wire pairs per foot, twist wire pairs per foot, meaning keeping the pairs twisted. It's higher quality, more expensive. So the more twist you have in the wire, the more expensive the wire is going to be. And they call it twist ratio per foot. The highest twist ratio will give you greater attenuation, lower noise susceptibility. Hundreds of different designs of twisted. 1 to 4,200 wire pairs possible within a twisted pair. The standard we'll be using that most businesses use is a TIA EIA 568 twisted pair standard. And we'll be using category 6 And most LANs today use either Category 5 or Category 6 wiring. Advantages of twisted pair: it's relatively inexpensive, flexible, easy installation, spans significant distance. Two categories, STP and UDP. STP standing for shielded twisted pair and unshielded twisted pair, meaning that the shielding on a STP is much more expensive and much higher noise reason for noise unsusceptible to noise, meaning noise resistant on STP. UTP doesn't have much shielding around the wires whatsoever, so it's very highly susceptible to noise. So on a shielded twister, you'll notice you've got the 4 pairs. You've got the foil shielding, you've got the branded copper, and then the nice jacket around it. And it can even be grounded. Untwisted is the one we generally use and most businesses do. You'll notice you just have the 4 wires and then the jacket, and that's it. No additional shielding. Very less expensive, very less, but less noise resistant. But it's perfect for office use where there's no electromagnetic energy, no big fans or machinery running. Works perfect. Here's the UTP standards, all the way up to Category 7. Like I said, we'll be doing Category 6 in class or Category 5, depending on the wires we have in at the time. Category 5 UTP, again, the 4 twisted pairs. In this screenshot here, it shows a blue, white, blue, brown, white, brown, or orange, white, orange, green, white, green, and brown, white, brown. On throughput, both the same for STP and UTP. Cost varies a little bit. Noise immunity, STP is much more noise resistant. Size, both have 100 meters roughly for distance between repeaters, like switches. Connectors use RJ45. Your home, those of you who still have home analog phone, use RJ11 for your telephone wires. But for your cabling wires, it's RJ45, RJ standing for registered jack. Some of the terminologies when it comes to cabling for networking is called patch cable, which is relatively short cable connecting connectors at both ends. Used a lot of times within baker's racks, within networking closets to connect switches to switches. Also, proper cabling termination techniques, where a basic requirement for 2 nodes to communicate. Poor terminations lead to less noise or lead to loss or noise. And the standards for twisted pair is a 568A and B standard. If you want to make, say, a straight patch cable, you can do like a 568A twice. The wires will be the same on both sides. We'll do like a crossover. You do one of each, an A on one side, a B on one side. So on the left is the A standard, on the right is the B standard. And again, it's just a matter of differences on the wire pairs, how they're connected. And again, like 4,200 different wire pairs can be connected. This is one of the main standards that's used. You'll notice here on a crossover cable, the transmit and receive wires are reverse. So we have an A side and we got a B side. And you'll notice the transmit and receive wires on one end are reverse, and that causes a crossover. And what that means is you don't need an intermediary device like a switch or a hub for 2 computers to talk. You just plug the RJ45s in both computers, and it can connect to one another. Straight through cable, though, where the termination ends with both, you need an intermediary device like a switch or a hub to connect other computers together. Some tools used in cabling is a wire cutter, like this one, a wire stripper, and a crimping tool. There's a wire stripper, there's a crimping tool. After we make cables, you always verify that it works. And we will do that by using a tester in the classroom. It'll tell you if it's passes, meaning the connection's good, and you put the wires in the RJ45 correctly, encrypt them, and it'll also tell you the length of that cable. We'll do it on both sides. Whenever you complete one side, you'll do it. Complete the other side, you'll do it. And we're going to end on fiber, and then we're going to switch to the lab. So fiber optic basically is made up either glass or plastic fibers in the middle. Pulse and light is sent through from laser. And the LED of the light emitting node is through central fibers on the data transmission. It has a cladding around it that's made, the cladding can be either made of glass or plastic surrounded fibers. Different density from glass or plastic, and it does a lot of reflection back to the core. The plastic buffer outside cladding protects the cladding in the core. It's opaque to absorb any escaping light. And Kevlar strands, like polymeric fiber, has surrounded plastic buffer, and plastic sheath covers the Kevlar strands. So there's two types of cores for fiber, either glass or you could say the Kevlar strands as well. So here's an example of a fiber optic cable. Two categories, single mode and multi-mode. In the single mode, the core is less than 10 microns in diameter. It's laser generated light, travels over path. Light does not disperse. And it accommodates higher bandwidths, longer distances. Can travel, long distances, miles on end, depending on the type of fiber you have. Transatlantic fiber as well, under the ocean. And much more higher cost and cost prohibitive, typical for LANs and WANs to use. So you'll notice like this, the transmissions mediums over the fiber, bounces around till it gets to the other side. In multi-mode, it uses a core 62.5 microns in size, very larger diameter, and can travel at different angles. So this one can be moved around a lot, whereas a single mode is usually a straighter. This one can be moved around corners and things of that nature, much tighter places. And common uses for this would be router to switch, because you're going to be moving around the floors and the ceilings and the walls, and things like that. So as you can see, with the wider path, the bounce occurs much more in a wider path multi-fiber or multi-mode fiber. Benefits: extremely high throughput, very fast, very highly noise resistant, extremely excellent when it comes to security, and can travel longer distances before needing a repeater. It's industry standard for high-speed networking. Drawback: much more expensive than twisted pair and does require special equipment to splice. So throughput on multi-mode fiber can reach 100 gigabits per second per channel, much more expensive than the most expensive transmission medium. And different connectors, depending on the fiber. You have ST for straight tip, SC for subscriber connector, LC for local connector, and MTRJ, mechanical transfer register jack. Noise immunity, unaffected by electromagnetic energy whatsoever, doesn't even affect it. Size and scalability, up to 40,000 meters in one run before it needs a repeater. 40,000 meters, that's crazy. So here's the different tips that we just went over in a visual. All right, now I want to go over the lab. All right, so let's go ahead and end that. I'm going to switch to the lab. We're going to do it a little different because we're doing the live podcast. That's why I had you submit your name earlier. So we're going to go to week 4. I'm going to go over the instructions here with you first. You will do the lab at home. Since you already submitted your name, you do not need to, unless you want to. You can, if you want to, after it's done, attach it and submit it, but you don't need to since you already submitted your name. So first thing we're going to do is we'll do this reading together. We'll download this document here. and go over it. So let's go ahead and do the reading together here. You can read my screen. This goes over the ping and tracer, what it is. Basically, in networking, ping and tracer are utilities that can be used to help troubleshoot networking and internet connections. The ping utility is built in its responsiveness between two hosts, like a computer, a router, a switch. The tracer utility also checks responsiveness as well as the path that a packet takes to get from one host to the other. Some devices on a network will not respond to a ping or tracer request. In this case, the tracer utility can show location right before the host that's not responding. System requirements for ping and tracer built in to the TCP/IP suite. All Windows, Linux, Mac have this available. Ping. It's used primarily to find out if a computer is reachable. You can ping yourself on a computer by typing the word ping, first of all, getting to the command prompt on your computer by hitting the start button, typing in CMD and hitting enter. Then you can type in this ping.space and then localhost or ping space 127.0.0.1. That'll ping yourself. In this example here is pinging Apple's website. Or you can ping an IP address. So if you were to ping Apple, this is just an example, and we'll look at it on this sheet here, and then we'll do a real live example in a second. So if you ping apple.com, it'll come back with an IP address and tell you an echo request up to 4 times on a Windows computer, unlimited on Linux and Mac. It'll come back with the IP address from Apple and print it out on the screen, and it's called an echo reply. So it goes to you ping apple.com, goes to Apple's web server, comes back with the IP address of Apple's web server. It also comes back with how many bytes are in that data, the round trip time of that data, and the time to live. Every packet has what's called a TTL field, a time to live. It could start out, let's say 225, which is the highest it can go. As a packet traverses along the network, it's decreased every time it hits a node, a server, a router, it passes through. So if you go to apple.com in Cupertino, California, where Apple's located, it might go through, let's say, 20, 30 routers between here and there. Each one of those is going to recognize and decrease the TTL. All right. The reason the TTL exists is because otherwise it would live forever on the network, or it could live forever. So if it gets down to 0, it's going to drop it and discard it and go on to the next one. If the TTL field varies in successive pings, as this sentence here is, it could be indicative that there's issues with your switches or routers on the path. The time field is an indication of the round trip time. It's kind of like if I was in the same room with you and I threw a ball at you and you threw it back, that's round trip time. So how long does it take to get to Apple's web server and come back to you where you're located at, wherever that might be? That's considered time field. Measured in milliseconds. It's best if the round trip times are under 200 milliseconds. If you're a gamer, if you have higher trip time, it's going to mean you're going to lose a game. Because by the time you see something, everybody else in the game's already seen it, maybe. The time to live packet, or the time packet, basically reaches its destination and called latency. And latency, for an example of gamers, is the lower latency, the better. When it comes to video, if you have a higher latency, you're going to live video that's choppy and is spinning a lot, trying to watch it. So in order to use a ping in a Windows environment, which most of you are on, and even Mac environment, it's the same thing, you're going to do a start, click on the start button on Windows, and run, and then type in CMD and hit enter. So if you want to do that now on your computer, I'll just sit here and wait for a second. So start button on Windows, you'll see a little box pop up on the above Windows when you hit the stop button. So you could type something in the box, type in CMD, Charlie Mary Detroit, and hit enter. Once you hit enter, a little black box will pop up. And just for fun, let's go ahead and type in the word ping space and then www.apple.com. When you type that in, somebody type in the chat what the IP address was for that on your computer. Some of you might have one timed out, maybe. I don't know. In Windows 10, somebody says you can hit the Windows R at the same time, Windows key and the R at the same time. It'll run a prompt, pull up the prompt as well for a shortcut. For those of you who want a shortcut. Thanks, Ethan, for posting that. So as soon as you type in the CMD command, type in the word ping and then space bar on your computer, and then type in the www.apple.com, and then somebody type in a comment here in the chat what IP address was returned from Apple. You might have been timed out. I don't know. You let me know. Did you get an IP return or did you get a timeout return? You'll type in exactly what it looks like here. Ping space www.apple.com. All right. Thank you, Spring, for posting that. And, you know, on a Windows V6, Sebastian, yeah, 2359115554. And Spring, yours looks different because you're running on version 6 IP, so it's the same decimal though. Yep. Nicholas, same thing. So the difference between Sebastian and Nicholas is here is the fact that Nicholas or Sebastian is running off of version 4 NIC card. Everyone else is that's posted so far is a version 6. Good, good. All right, great. No, you're perfect. And you'll notice on whether you're version 4 or version 6 IP NIC card, you're going to get back you should get back 4 replies that are sent and 4 that are received. That's the most important part I want to notice here. Loss should be 0. Approximate round trip time will tell you what that might be. And the example here in Ethan's, it was minimum 16 milliseconds, maximum 21 milliseconds, average 593 milliseconds. So good. All right, great. Well, let's move on. If you didn't post yours, don't worry about it. We'll move on. All right. Now, additional ping commands, I want to go over real quick before we get to the lab. If you're in a Linux world or a Mac world, Control C will stop the ping because if you do a ping in those environments, it'll be unlimited. It'll keep going till you hit Control C. If you wanted to export the contents of your ping to a file on your computer, you just put at the end of the ping command, space, greater than symbol, the name of the file that you want it to be, .txt, and it's going to save it in your documents folder on Windows. It'll save it, I believe, in the documents folder or download folder on the Mac and Linux or on the Mac world. You could also specify the count of what you want it to be, especially on the Linux and Mac folks. Ping space www apple.com space, and then -T is going to give the specified computer, pings the specified computer until it's interrupted. So on the Windows side, it'll continue on until you are interrupted by this putting a -T on the end of that. All right. You want to run a certain amount of times, like sending a certain length of packet, or sending a number of echo commands. The default's 4. Say you wanted 7, you would put -N space 7 to get 7 instead of 4 on the Windows, and even Linux and Mac, it works as well. And if you want to push a certain length of a packet to, the default's going to be usually 32 bytes, maximum 8194. And this could sometimes be used for penetration testing to see if your network can use it, or can use that and work fine. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that document, and we're going to go to the download file, fill out lab one. And I'm using this one just so everybody sees the same thing. This is an online Traceroute ping lab I like to use. And what I'm going to do is have you go over this. I'm going to get started. I'm going to have you do I'm going to do the first couple together with you, and I'm going to have you finish the rest of it on your own. It's 3 pages long. It's not real long in length, but it's a good tutorial on what pinging and Traceroute is. So I'm going to do the first steps with you. So this will be probably easier, I'm guessing, to once you get the document open here and you click on that pingtool.org or copy and paste it in a new URL in your web browser. As soon as you get pingtool.org in your web browser and you have loaded it, let me know by saying I am there. And it should look like this. So once you get pingtool.org loaded on your computer, say I am there on the chat. And once I see everybody say I am there, I will then have you minimize the video, live video you've been watching of me. And I'm just going to verbally tell you what to do on that website from the instructions. That way you don't have to go back and forth between tabs and minimize, maximize, all that good stuff. Cool. Nick's there, Spring's there, Jason's there, Ethan's there, Sebastian's there. See, we're waiting on just a few others. We're waiting on here, Jason. Okay, I think everybody's there. That's in the chat anyway. All right, so you guys are on the website. Minimize my video, live chat, my live podcast thing, and I'm gonna walk you through what to do. So what this is, it's a free tool to use to see how pinging works, Traceroute works, all that fun stuff. And I like to use it because a couple reasons. Sometimes we do this lab, the computer, that's okay, Ethan, don't worry about it. Sometimes we use this because the computers that you're on might not let you ping, or the network you're on might not let you ping. So this way I know everybody can get to it. It's a host site outside of Rock Valley. It's on a web server somewhere. So the first thing I want you to do is you're going to, where on the upper right corner of the site where it says target host here, and it might have a whole bunch of hexadecimal in there right now. I want you to type in google.com and then hit enter. And you'll notice when you do that, it's going to come back with a ping. So mine says ping google.com 172.217.16.142 bytes of data. And then it says 64 bytes from, and then it gives me the version 6 version 4 version in parentheses, sequencing 1, time to live 58, time took 24.4 milliseconds, 4 were received packets, 0 were lost, time 1504 milliseconds is what mine says. So yours might be a little different than mine, but that's basically what a ping is doing. Okay. So while you're on yours, I'm going to have you do another one. Now I want you to notice, go ahead and ping like yahoo.com. As soon as you ping yahoo.com, you'll just replace google.com at the top right there where it says target IP host name and hit enter. Somebody tell me as soon as you get it, I'll just ask for a few of you, not all of you have to post it. What is your average round trip time when you ping yahoo.com? And somebody else can post what's the IP address that you got for Yahoo. And then somebody else can post how many packets were received successfully. And you can all do this together. I'm not saying you can't all do it, so you don't have to. So just as long as we get one or two do it, that's great. Okay, so Jason, that's the one he got there on the screen, the 18346 478 average round trip time. 183.474 or 464. Okay, IP address for Nick, 7230359. Some of you might see a different IP address too, because it might have different server hits. Sebastian said 118 milliseconds on the time, and Spring 1499 milliseconds. Cool. Next one, let's do this. Ping Facebook.com now and tell me what the round trip time is, IP address you got for Yahoo, and how many packets were received. If you want, you can copy and paste it and put it in the chat. That's fine. You don't have to type it in. You just copy and paste it from the tool there. That'll work. Just make sure and copy everything that's on your screen from the word ping all the way down on the right side there. Cool. Great. Let's see here. Yeah, Jason, Nick, a little different. Millisecond time, say minimum 64, average, max. Average is a little different. Max, little different. Not much though. Pretty close on everybody's. So you get how it works. You get how it works from this tool. Okay. So the purpose of the ping basically is to figure out a couple things. IP address, is things coming back properly, 4 packets being received, 4 being received, 4 being sent, 4 being received. Now I want you to post your favorite website, whatever it is you usually go to, might be a sports site, a blog, whatever. Okay. Ping your favorite website, then paste your results in the chat. And make sure and put in there before you paste the results what the website is, what the domain, the DNS name. So it's, I don't know, msn.com, but msn.com, then paste your results underneath it. Reddit, okay, cool. YouTube, great. So on Reddit, 4 packets were transmitted, 4 were received, 0 loss. I'll look at the average on everybody on the time, the 24.442 on Reddit. YouTube, 24.414. Everything received and sent. Great, great. Cool, you're doing good. mycreditunion.org. Let's see on that one, average was 138.464. It's a little longer. time. And Ethan's is still loading, still loading, still loading. And sometimes you'll get that. Sometimes you will get that for sure, Ethan. You might try Ethan if you want, if it's still loading. There you go. Now it came. USKB.com. And round trip time, wow, pretty quick. Average on that one, 0.275. All right. Now we're going to switch to the Traceroute. So in that pingtool.org website, I want you to click on underneath ping on the left side, the word Traceroute. Then what's going to happen is on the right side, it's going to load whatever your IP address was in there already, which is going to be the favorite website I just had you load. And it's going to give you a trace of that IP from your computer, or in this case, from the server we're on, to that website that you posted earlier, that you just pinged, whether it be YouTube or Reddit or whoiskb.com. And it might only give a few Traceroutes. Mine here on Google only gave 5 back in results. But I want to, whatever one it is you've chosen, I want us to look at for just a second. In fact, do me a favor. Once you post yours, once you click on Traceroute, and it gives you the Traceroute list, it should on the left side give you a number of how many came back. Mine only gave back 5 out of 30 max hops. Tell me what you gave back. How many numbers? It'll be 1 to 30. And it can vary. Okay, 5, 30 on Ethan's, 21 on Spring. Okay, now it looks like Jason 9 out of 30. Great. So now what I want you to do is look at right after the number. It's number 1, let's say. Notice it has a weird name in all those. And those names are referred to a lot of times a router that it hit, and the next number over is going to be the IP address of that router. The next number is going to be the time it took to hit that router in the order of from this server to your website that you typed in. On mine, it started on number 1 at 0.060, the third column. It's the third column over. Then fourth, set next is 24 seconds, 25 seconds on the third, 25.1 on the fourth, 24.3 something on the fifth. So what this is doing is giving the max hops, and let me see if I can find one that might make sense here a little better, and I'll have you type it in. More close to home. Okay, type in rockvalleycollege.edu and make sure you are still in the Traceroute area. And I got completed results of 21, and 22 through 30 were asterisk out, meaning they were nulled out. So tell me if you also, how many did you get back on the rockvalleycollege.edu? Huh, 3 hops, yeah. Nick had 21. That's exactly what I had. So most of you should have got 21, I believe, completed. And here's where it's getting interesting. Okay, that's why I like Traceroute, really. This is where it's kind of cool. So if you go to the number 1 hop, that's where it starts at. And this means this is where this pingtool.org server's at. Okay. And you can notice a lot of times by the extension, this is going to be a server in the UK somewhere. Okay. And most of you got looks like 2021, somewhere around there. So the first, my first hop was something node.saraya.it, which is going to be in basically a uh, location outside of the US. Then as you keep going down the numbers, keep looking at them, the second column past the numbers. When we get to a mine anyway, let's see here. When I get to number 17, I see in there chi.lincoln.net. Where do you think that router's located at? Somebody take a guess. chi.lincoln.net is what I have on mine. Voyager, I think, is in there as well. What state do you think this is located in? And some of the key words are going to be in there in the three-letter extension area. Yeah. Yep, Chicago is correct, and it's basically the uh, the stuff before the chai.lincoln.net is referring to location. So chai is going to be more than likely going to be in around the Springfield, Illinois area, and then Rockford core is in Rockford. The next core doesn't know where that's at, but then the number 20 is actually Rockford core again. Finally to 21, which is Illinois.net. That is our Illinois.net is actually our ISP here in Rock Valley. And so, as you can see, as what's cool about the tracer is you can actually trace, and a lot of times the routers will tell you in the name of the router where the location is of that. But what's cool about this tool is, besides finding out hops, if they're successful or not, but also finding out how long it took and how many hops it, and interesting where the hops went. A lot of times you can tell from the IP address location. You can't tell some of the names sometimes, but location of IP you can. So what I want to do is let's do this. Take and copy the IP address of number 1 on the tracer. Mine is 31.14.179.14. We'll copy that on number 1 of the tracer. And then on the left side under ping utilities, we can actually look up country. We can look up country, IP to country. And by default, it's going to give Rock Valley College, which is US. If we paste in that IP address, though, at the top that we just copied and hit enter, and make sure and click on the IP to country. And we might be getting some timeout here now, possibly on some of ours. I know I am on mine. It only lets you do so many. Yeah, I didn't either. I had to click mine. I had to wait 5 seconds and then click it again, and then it finally came back On the IP to country, I got nothing. But if we click on the who is above IP to country, we should be able to tell more information about that IP address. At least it did on mine. And looks like it's in Lithuania is the country. And let's see, going on down further, created 2015, organization, org UVP ripe, gives me the address, which is in Lithuania, also gives me the phone number of the support. So the who is going to give us more information. Were you able to get the who is RIPE lookup of that IP address on 3.1.14.179.154 or whatever your number one was? You should be able to get that. Okay, Ethan said it's showing up for him. Good. So the who is going to give you more detail about that IP address. If you can't make sense of the name of the router, you can look up the who is of that IP to figure out where it's coming from. That way you can determine from that exactly the hops that it took to get there. Okay. And lastly, I want to show you, if you go back to the document that I had you go away from earlier and minimize my screen, go back to the document. We're going to go to the very bottom of this document, number 8, where it says Visual Traceroute Tool. And we're going to look at something cool. This tool actually shows you on a map what the tracer does, and it gives you a visual of it. So we're going to go to this tool, enter Rock Valley College, and view the route. And so you can copy that URL if you want to on number 8 and paste it in a new tab. And then we're going to, once it comes up, put in rockvalleycollege.edu in the text area there and click Start Test. And this is what's called a Visual Trace Route Tool. And once it's finished, which mine just finished up, I can then double click in the middle of where I start seeing the green circles and start seeing a visual representation of the hops that occurred. And some of them will be really overlapping some. Mine actually went over even to the West Coast, to Chicago, all the way back to down south to up north. And more than likely on that is because this service is located on the East Coast. So kind of play around with that for a second. If you click on one of the green circles, it'll show you the IP address. So, and it might go to different routes depending on when you typed it in. And I'm glad some people have different routes in mind. And what that tells you is Rock Valley College and our ISP is going to give whatever the fastest route it might go to at that time. When I clicked on mine, it was the East Coast. Everybody else looks like it might be going to the West Coast. Now, what I want you to do is type in your favorite website that you typed in earlier that you go to a lot. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to type in edx.org, which is an online course site and teaching site I go to a lot. And on this one, you might not see, start from 1. It's only going to give you what hops were showed up. Like in mine, it was hops 7 and 13 on edx.org. Anyways, just another tool to use, kind of a cool tool that they created to perform Traceroute on a website from US, Europe, and Asia, and identify and isolate network connectivity issues that might be on that traverse from that location to the server this is located on. Cool. Awesome. So it looks like most of you got yours back. Now, on the second one you did, can somebody tell me how many visual hops did it give you on your website that you put in? And what was the latest hop? Like mine was 13 here, and it gave let's see, in Bridgeport, New York, it looks like. Nick's at 3, 11, and 12. And then somebody tell me where your latest hop was from by clicking on the hop itself. It'll show you country and pinpoint you on the map actually where it's at. Jersey and KC to California. Nick, Ethan, visual was 14. Great. And Ethan, where'd yours land on 14, and what part of the states was it at, or was it overseas? Newark to Philly. LA is what Ethan said on his. And lastly, I'm going to do one just to see, because Microsoft has a lot of servers all over the world. I'm doing Microsoft.com just to see where this one lands. And looks like the highest one in mine was located in Kansas City. I believe here, Wichita, actually, near Wichita, Kansas. And it's an Amazon server, it looks like. And cool. All right. Well, that is the hands-on lab going over ping tool and tracer tool. You do not need to submit anything since we did it together. But make sure those of you that did come in, maybe you came in a little late on the online environment, make sure to submit your name in the check-in for week 4, in the lab for week 4. You're not submitting a document, by the way, just submit your name. That's all you need to do. And that is it for week 4. Any questions? While you're posting questions, if you have any, I'm going to look forward to next week a little bit, which is week 5. The lab for next week that we'll be doing, going over chapter, let's see, chapter 4. We'll be doing your creating a network LAN next week. And it looks like spring had Philly, New York, Bridgeport, Chicago, Wichita, San Jose, and Jordan. Wow, Jordan, cool. So next week, week 5, we will be doing a network LAN lab. When you come in, weather permitting, hopefully we'll have good weather next week. We will create a LAN, a hardwired LAN. And so you'll learn how you put one together. You'll connect your computers to a hub. I'll show you how to set your IP manually and create a manual network connection. And we'll be doing that in week 5. Cool. Well, that concludes week 4. Do me a favor, if you don't mind, go ahead and type in the word bye in the chat. When I see that everybody has typed in bye or good night, I will end the chat and also end the online video, online podcast. I'll end that as well. So thanks for joining tonight. Have a good weekend. It's supposed to be nicer weather starting tomorrow through the weekend. Then more snow, I think, Sunday night. So, all right. Good night. Good night, Ethan.